to do another Afghanistan moment. That ignominious exit from Afghanistan
Yeah.
was almost what happened in Ukraine when the Biden administration offered him that ride out of there. And fortunately, he declined and helped rally, and the people from below also rallied to stop the invader without the presidency and without the government in Ukraine, saving the Biden administration and the European leaders who latched on. Fortunately, they had the presence of mind to latch on to this gift, this bravery and ingeniousness of Zelensky and the rest of the Ukrainians, and flipped and decided to support Ukraine's resistance. First with 5,000 helmets only, as the Germans initially promised, and now with really heavy weapons. And so that's something that wasn't foreseen. I certainly didn't foresee that. I foresaw the Ukrainian society being courageous and resisting, but I didn't foresee a television production company being exactly what you want to run a country in a war. A President Zelensky willing to sacrifice, lay down his life, and rallying others in the country to do that. And then the country being so effective, not just at courage, but at battlefield resistance to the Russian invasion. So I stand corrected by the Ukrainians, and I'm ecstatic that I was wrong, that I was proven wrong.
And like I said, there's clear factions of the west and the east of Ukraine. And here's a person that, like you said, was in the high 20s, low 30s percentage approval in the country before the war, and now was able to use
He's in the 90s now.
in the 90s.
He's in the 90% approval rating. I mean, I think they stopped doing the polling. Once he hit 91% or whatever it was in the previous poll, I think they all understood that for now they didn't need any more polling, that it's pretty clear the nation. So 25% to 90 something percent. And just like the 25% was deserved, the 90 something percent is also deserved, fully deserved.
Cooking your 7-bean dip again?
I know, I promised not to, but doesn't it smell good?
For now, yes, but we both know it's coming.
Speaking of gas, did you hear we're getting a BJ's Wholesale Club with everyday low gas prices?
Nice. Just think how much we'll save.
So I can make my bean dip?
Sure, if you want to sleep in the garage.
BJ's Wholesale Club is opening soon in Staten Island. Join now for $25 at bjs.com/Staten Island or visit the membership center in the Bricktown Center. Limited time offer, new members only. BJ's, absurdly simple savings.
Hey, welcome in. It's another episode of the Low Limit Cash Games podcast. I want to thank you so much for being a subscriber. I hope that you continue to appreciate a brand new, fresh, strategy intensive episode the first Sunday of every month. If you'd like to get an episode every Sunday of the month, details about that are at the very end of this podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the difference between small pocket pairs and suited connectors. So these are two hands that people play similarly. I jokingly said to a friend of mine one time, a long, long time ago, but I've used it many times since. And maybe other people have said it. I don't want to take credit for it. Maybe somebody else admitted it. But generally when people are playing these small pocket pairs and they're playing suited connectors, they're essentially playing bingo, or it's like putting $1 in a slot machine. You're hoping that you hit bingo on the flop. You're hoping that you hit a jackpot on the flop. Because these hands just aren't that strong on their own. Pocket deuces cannot continue very often, if ever, past the flop of ace, king, 9. They just can't. Likewise, 6-5 suited can rarely, if ever, continue across a flop of ace, queen, 10 rainbow. Just, it's very difficult. It's near impossible. It rarely, if ever, happens. So they do have a lot of similarities in the fact that they are essentially played as bingo hands or slot machine hands. That's the way people play them. There's a few problems with how people play these hands, generally speaking, and then there's also some key differences between the hands. So I wanted to talk about those briefly here to try to help you start playing these hands better. So, if I may quote somebody who is a member of my Patreon and is an active member over on our private Discord, she said recently that it's been amazing how much her win rate has increased since she started ditching tiny pocket pairs and bad suited connectors under the gun. And truer words were never spoken. If you're going to try to make, and I'm talking about these typical games that we're talking about, these are the games that keep people play. If you're playing in a low stakes, at a local card room, 1-2 no limit game, 1-3 no limit game, 2-2 no limit game, and even 2-5 no limit games, really, trying to make pocket deuces profitable from under the gun is going to be a challenging proposition at best. Likewise, trying to make 7-6 suited profitable from under the gun is going to be very challenging at best. But what's the main problem with live poker? Does anybody know what the main reason people, even people who are trying, even people who are consciously trying to win, and they're studying, and maybe they subscribe to, podcasts like mine, maybe you look at YouTube videos, maybe you've even subscribed to a training site like my Patreon training site, which is geared specifically to low stakes players. People still struggle to win. You know what the number one reason people struggle to win is? There's two reasons, really, two main reasons. They kind of fall hand in hand. They're different, but similar. But boredom is one, and two is discipline. And a lot of the discipline comes in the form of not being able to fight the urges you have when you're bored. So it's boredom and discipline. These are the problems people have. When you've been looking at 9 deuce off, 10-3 off, 7-4 off, 8-3 off, and you've been looking at these hands for the past 90 minutes, and suddenly you get 7-6 suited under the gun, you're not folding that hand. You're just not. Why? Because you're human. And it's the prettiest hand you've seen in 90 minutes. And you didn't come to the card room to fold. You didn't come and bring your money and plan this whole day and drive 30 or 45 minutes or an hour and a half. I mean, some people drive 2 hours. You didn't do all of that to come and fold for 4 hours. And you've had to fold for 90 minutes. And now you've got the 7-6 suited under the gun, or you've got the pocket deuces under the gun. And by God, we're playing them. That's fine. It's fine if you understand, hey, I'm not really looking to probably show a profit at this, but at least it's a hand I can play and maybe we'll quote unquote hit bingo. So with all that being said, the more you fold them from under the gun one, the more your hourly win rate will increase. Just trust me on that. And we really want to be with pocket pairs. We really want to start opening those somewhere around the 6s or 7s or 8s range, depending on how the game you're playing is playing. You want to come in for an open, and if you get 3-bet, depending on who 3-bets, how big the 3-bet is, how deep the stacks are, you probably be doing a fair amount of folding to 3-bet. And then, of course, depending on the same factors, calling 3-bets with your pocket 6s, 7s, 8s, whatever, these medium, smallish pairs that you opened under the gun. Deuces, 3s, and 4s, you can just fold them. Just always fold them. Now, look, if you're at a game where hardly anybody's ever raising, they're just never raising, and you're in a game where people will just stack off with 2 pairs or top pairs, and you have deuces, and you limp it under the gun, and you think that there's a fair amount of the time that you just get to see a flop for $2. If you're in a game like that, sure, you can limp deuces under the gun. I just think it's better just fold them. That way you don't have to guess and wonder. The other problem with deuces is you get coolered by literally every other pair when they hit a set. And this is something people don't think about a lot. As a matter of fact, 3 or 4 days ago, I got a message from a guy who played pocket deuces, and he got oversetted by pocket 4s, and he was trying to ask me how he could have avoided it. I'm not going to go deep into how that conversation went, but nevertheless, that is a risk that you run with deuces. Does that mean you should never play deuces? No, but I'm just saying the higher your pairs are, the less chance there is that you get oversetted. So there's just many reasons to have some kind of a reasonable structure for under the gun. Now, if you go look up GTO ranges and see, how often somebody is opening pocket deuces under the gun or something like that, you're going to find that it's very, 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 very rarely. just for that example, I'm going to pull up some GTO ranges right now for 9-handed 100 big blind cash games. And this is GTO ranges, right? These are not tweaked for cash. And don't come at me. I get it. I definitely don't use GTO ranges, but GTO range is a good starting point. The only pair that is full 100% opening under the gun in a 100 big blind cash game 9-handed is pocket 10s. Pocket 9s is a sliver, pocket 8s is a sliver, pocket 7s is a sliver, pocket 6 is a microscopic sliver, pocket 5s is a sliver so small I can barely even see the line. And so, this is what you're running into. And then how many suited connectors are opening under the gun? 9-handed, 100 big blinds in a cash game? 8-7 suited is a sliver. 7-6 suited, a slightly bigger sliver. 6-5 suited is the biggest sliver, and I would say it's like 10% or something. So that gives you some context. Now, this de coup de grace, this is what I told you we'd be talking about, that it took me forever to get here, but I just really think it's important that we lay a solid groundwork for everything that we're going to be discussing with these two hands. But here's the difference in the hands. This is the primary. There's a lot of difference. I'm going to talk about one difference, one big difference between tiny pocket pairs and suited connectors. Rarely, if ever, can you play small, tiny pocket pairs across multiple streets. It's a one and done thing. You flop it or you don't flop it. Now, sometimes it'll check around. And then sometimes you'll be in spots where you'll do something like I did, I don't know, it's been a week or two ago, but I had pocket 4s. And I was in cutoff, I think, or something, and there was a raise. I was in a 2-2 game and was playing very small. This casino I was at, I stayed there a month, actually. I traveled and played a month in this poker room that plays some of the smallest 2-2 I've ever seen. Like, the opening raise sizes most times are not that big. And I did get in some juicy games where it got crazy, but anyway, it was an open raise to 7 or 8 or something. It might even been as high as 10. I don't know, but we're plenty deep. And I just called with the 4s because there's a raise and there's a call or whatever, and it's just in the spot where it's calling with 4s. And I don't remember what the pot was, but I know there was a continuation bet on the flop, and it was very small. And every card up there was higher than a 4, but it looked like something Ace King might have missed, Ace Queen might have missed, King Queen might have missed sometimes. Tiny fraction percentage of the time that we're ahead. Pot. The bet in relation size of pot, very tiny. The players between me and that player folded. So I knew there was a decent chance I'd be heads up. And if I wasn't heads up, I would have position, even if the one of the blinds called. And as it turned out, we did wind up heads up. And as it turned out, we did bink a 4 on the turn very cheaply. And as it turns out, they did catch a card they needed on the river. They had they had an over and a gut shot. They did hit one of the overs on the river, and I wound up getting paid a pretty nice, handsome amount. My point is, rarely you can continue across multiple streets with tiny pairs, but it's very, very rare, and it's certainly going to be rare, if ever, when you're under the gun, which is, again, if I could just go back to that, fold, 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 fold. It's generally I either flopped it or I didn't. And, this is where we go way back in the day where people talked about small pairs always in terms of set mining. Set mining. We're set mining. We're trying to hit a set. And, I mean, that is what you're doing a decent amount of the time. But, that's not really the way we think about pairs in later position these days. I raise with pairs, little pairs in later position, and 3-bet with them on occasion from later position as well. Just, again, that's a whole other subject for another time. But generally speaking, when you have these deuces, 3s, 4s, 5s, whatever, it's kind of a one and done. You hit the flop or you didn't, and your opportunities to see streets past the flop are going to be nil, very rarely. On the other hand, suited connectors can play across flops turns a lot of the time. And you can play them somewhat aggressively, depending on your position and action and stack sizes, player types, and all these other things that you can take into account. And so it's a vastly different animal. I guess the equivalent would be if we were playing suited connectors to always try to flop top 2, right? That'd be the equivalent of how we play little pocket pairs, because you're looking to flop a set with them. If suited connectors played the same way, the equivalent would be as if you had 8-7 suited, if you were always trying to hit an 8-7 deuce flop, right? Which it's just very hard to hit that flop. But with suited connectors, you can flop 2 overs with a gut shot and a straight draw and a flush draw or a backdoor flush draw, or just all these different type things, plus the 2 pairs, and, plus the weird full houses and all these other things. But you'll hit things that you can play across multiple streets. I mean, a lot of times that you can continue passively or aggressively across multiple streets, whether it be as a call or as a raise or as a check raise. Many, many things you can do with suited connectors that you just simply can't do with pocket deuces. You just will never be able to do those things with pocket deuces. You either hit your deuce or you didn't, and you're kind of done. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't ever raise with pocket deuces. If there certainly might be a time where you're in position with them and the board becomes really bad for your opponent and you decide to, try a raise against a specific opponent in a specific set of circumstances. But generally speaking, no. Again, it's most always a one and done kind of thing on the flop, whereas for sure suited connectors play so well across multiple streets. And if you can play them well and you understand how to play them well, I think they function a lot better. The other thing that I should add in as we wrap this up is that the safest of the two, and this is very interesting, the ones that I see people lose the least amount of money with. Now, I'm not talking about people winning the most amount of money. I'm talking about when I see people lose the least amount of money between these two hand classes, suited connectors or tiny pocket pairs, you lose the least with the tiny pocket pairs because people will fold them. They will fold on the flop if they missed. And so it's a minimal investment. On the other hand, I see people play suited connectors horribly all the time. They'll continue with one pair hands that don't have hardly any other way to improve other than a 5-out 2-pair draw or something. When they're in an obvious situation where their opponent's range just has them thoroughly dominated, then they should never be continuing, but they just get tied up and stuck with a hand for whatever reason. And so if you're looking at which hand cost you the least or which hand people, play more appropriately on flops, I think it would be tiny pocket pairs because they're mostly looking to hit or fold, whereas people just get themselves in trouble with suited connectors. So these are some things to think about when you're trying to approach a strategy with your game, how you're looking to play tiny pocket pairs. Big takeaways: don't go broke with suited connectors on one pair boards. Don't be playing suited connectors in tiny pairs from under the gun or even under the gun one, often if ever. And understand the incentives of the hand and their ability to move across multiple streets. If you'd love to join us for poker training that's designed exclusively for trying to beat 1-2 and 1-3 no limit games, that's all I do. You won't log into my Patreon and find a video of anybody teaching you or giving hand histories of when they played a 25-50 game or a 50-100 game. I say this because I, from time to time, subscribe to various other training sites. Generally, I'll do it when they have some kind of a big sale or something like that. And what I find is even the ones who talk about low stakes a lot, when you get to the content on their site, it's these people playing in 5-10 games and 25-50 games and 100-200 games. And sure, some of the stuff, translates over, but you won't get any of that. There is a certain group of exploits and ways to play in 1-2 and 1-3 no limit games that crushes that particular player pool, and that's what we teach. And vice versa, just like some of that 100-200 no limit hold'em stuff for sure applies to a 1-2 no limit game. The opposite is true. A lot of the stuff that I teach about 1-2 no limit and 1-3 no limit translates very well to 2-5 and 5-10. But some of it doesn't as much because we're just really looking to exploit the worst of the worst of the worst players, which is what you will encounter at a typical 1-2, 1-3 no limit table. LowLimitCashGames.com is the address if you'd like to check it out, LowLimitCashGames.com. If you're one of the people that don't want to sign up for a training site, but you struggle with playing Ace King, I did create an Ace King Masterclass that you can just buy as a one-off. That's over there on the front page. So you can check all that out. I think I have one position open in the one-on-one training package. Not sure about that. We keep that very limited to very few people because I don't want to be overextended, and frankly, my time is valuable, but you can check that out while you're there as well. But we would love to have you there. And finally, if you're just somebody that says, you know what, I get plenty from this pod. I get plenty from this. I don't need a full-blown training site, but I really liked it better when you did an episode every Sunday, and I'd like to support that. Well, I do an episode every Sunday. It's reserved for fans of the pod. It's $5 a month. You know, it's if you break it down to all across all 4 episodes, it's, you know, $1.25, I guess, an episode or something. Very affordable. You can get it right there, delivered right in the same app that you use right now to listen to this. You can set it up in the Patreon where it still comes to your same app. And every Sunday you'll get an episode if you'd like to be a fan of the pod. All those options are over at lowlimitcashgames.com. Lowlimitcashgames.com. I'd love to have you come join us. We'll look forward to seeing you there.
Oh, honey, look, there's a portal opening.
Wow, just like the new BJ's Wholesale Club.
How is BJ's like a portal?
It takes you to a world where you can save up to 25% off grocery store prices.
Talk about out of this world savings. It's pulling me in!
You're gonna miss the big opening!
BJ's Wholesale Club is opening soon in Staten Island. Join now for $25 at bjs.com/Staten Island or visit the membership center in the Bricktown Center. Limited time offer. New members only. BJ's. Absurdly simple savings.
Are you cooking your 7 bean dip again?
I know, I promised not to, but doesn't it smell good?
For now, yes, but we both know it's coming.
Speaking of gas, did you hear we're getting a BJ's Wholesale Club with everyday low gas prices?
Nice. Just think how much we'll save.
So I can make my bean dip?
Sure, if you want to sleep in the garage.
BJ's Wholesale Club is opening soon in Staten Island. Join now for $25 at bjs.com/Staten Island or visit the membership center in the Bricktown Center. Limited time offer. New members only. BJ's. Absurdly simple savings.
In 1331 AD, the first instances of the Second Plague pandemic began somewhere in Central Asia. Within a few years, the disease appeared in the region around the Black Sea, and from there it spread throughout Asia and Europe. It created a level of devastation previously unknown in human history, killing something like 20% of the world's population globally. And of course, in urban areas, the devastation was even more severe, and in some cities, more than half the inhabitants